Fletcher Tabato.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to get straight into it, sir. We all acknowledge in this House that trade is critical for New Zealand's future. There's no two ways about it. This whole House has talked about critical industries, existing primary industries, and in the Select Committee I've attended in the past week or so, industry have talked about the need and the want to get into what we're seeing as the 40% of global trade that is represented with the TPP. But, sir, we know big business is looking out for the interests of big business. Mr. Speaker, I ask this government, who is looking out for small to medium-sized New Zealand business and the New Zealand people? Because, sir, it is supposed to be the job of the representatives of this House, is it not? In fact, more specifically, it is the job of those who would presume to call themselves the government. We are coming ever closer to the outcome of the TPP agreement, sir. Our government or more particularly, a select few government ministers have been remarkably silent as the end game gets into full swing in Washington, sir. So this government seems to think that their trade negotiators aren't up to the job, they can't negotiate. They seem to think that as we negotiate our way into global markets, the end game is all in or not at all. Where we have to be all in, or apparently we can't be part of this global trade opportunity, and sir, we disagree. So around the world we have seen sovereign countries, developed advanced economies looking to remove the ASDS clause from their supposed and their own free trade agreements. It is, sir, without doubt and with absolute fact and certainty costing sovereign nations around the world millions and even billions of dollars as international corporates sue sovereign nations for the apparent inconvenience of having to be, for example, environmentally compliant, or because they are being asked to pay the country's minimum wage, for example. Big business, it would appear, does not care about another country's environment or the rights of their workers if it compromises their projected profits. Then these international corporates are suing, sir, and are suing big time. Mr. Speaker, I can and will always support a business's right to the recourse in law. If their contracts are broken, or if, for example, the government acts in an anti-competitive manner, then even big business deserves the right to seek redress in law, sir. But, sir, here is what I don't think my national colleagues understand about what it is this bill is looking to introduce, this agreement is looking to introduce. These international corporates, sir, are suing outside of our domestic law, of their domestic law, or even agreed to international law. Law as we know it doesn't even come into the equation, sir. They are suing outside of any legal framework that we would call common or decent. So they are using what we would call disputes resolution tribunals. Mr. Speaker, a UN senior official has just recently called for talks between the EU and the United States to be put on hold. He spoke of his concerns because of his analysis of other free trade agreements around the world and what he is seeing happening, particularly around the ASDS clauses, where major corporates, as I've said, are suing sovereign nations in these secret tribunals. Nothing to do with our legal system, nothing to do with, say, America's legal system. The National Caucus, including the New Zealand public, has been assured that there will be safeguards. That there will be safeguards in New Zealand's TPP agreement. But members of this House, I assure you that the evidence shows us that all around the world, lawsuits against sovereign nations have been growing in number and they have been growing in size. And despite these apparent safeguards, sir, the lawsuits are succeeding and the safeguards seem to have no bearing on whatever it is that takes place in these tribunals. Now is the time for members of the National Party...
Order.
Oh.
Order. The time for this debate has expired. Call on private and local order of the day, number 1.
Of Christchurch Trust Bill, Christchurch City